Dear friends, welcome to our channel. We are delighted to share with you different stories about love and betrayal from around the world. So now, let's begin today's story journey. The sound of metal clashing echoed in the underground fighting arena. A mixture of sweat, blood, and perfume permeated the air. All around were continuously cheering spectators, most dressed elegantly, wearing priceless watches on their wrists, yet their eyes revealed a primitive excitement. This was Miami's most secretive underground fight. Only top-tier wealthy individuals could gain entry. In the ring, a muscular man had just knocked down his opponent, blood flowing from his brow, yet it didn't affect his momentum as he raised both arms in celebration. Below, a group of spectators cheered frantically, among them a particularly excited blonde woman, dressed in a red gown with impeccable makeup, walking toward the ring. At that moment, the music suddenly stopped, and the lights shone toward the ring entrance. A man with an upright figure walked steadily onto the ring, and the entire place immediately fell silent. He picked up the microphone, his voice as cold as frozen ice. "Excellent fight, Declan. Just as excellent as sharing my wife. However, that gambling debt you owe me, tonight will be repaid in another way." The victor in the ring frowned, while the woman in the red dress, her face instantly turned pale, almost fainting on the spot. She looked at the man on the ring with shock, her lips trembling, unable to utter a word. This man was Gareth, a former Special Forces member who now ran a successful high-end security company in Miami. The woman in the red dress was his wife Imogen. As for the fighter with the fierce smile on the ring, he was Declan, the organizer of underground fights, and also Imogen's secret lover for several months. Gareth took off his jacket, revealing well-trained muscles. The wealthy in the venue whispered among themselves. This unexpected bonus match was clearly more attractive than the scheduled fights. 6 years ago, Gareth was providing security for a fashion magazine mogul, the first big contract his security company received after his retirement from service. In the backstage of a fashion show, he saw Imogen for the first time. At that time, Imogen was a model at the peak of her career, with a stunning appearance and unlimited career prospects. "I've never seen a bodyguard so intently watching the exit instead of the models," Imogen said the first time she initiated conversation with Gareth. Gareth responded politely, "Because my job is to ensure everyone's safety, including yours." It was precisely this professionalism and self-restraint that attracted Imogen. After years in the fashion circle, she had grown weary of men who courted her. Gareth's uniqueness, however, sparked her interest. The subsequent courtship process was surprisingly traditional. Gareth insisted on formal dates, taking her to restaurants without paparazzi, walking on the beach, talking about life and dreams. Imogen found herself falling in love with this sense of stability, and a year later, they entered the sacred temple of marriage. During the first 3 years after the wedding, their life was like a fairy tale. Gareth's business flourished, providing high-end security services for various tycoons and entrepreneurs, his reputation continuously rising. Imogen, meanwhile, gradually reduced her modeling work and began to try designing her own clothing brand. They purchased a beautiful villa on Miami's seafront, and Friday night was their ironclad date night, never canceled no matter how busy they were. However, the peaceful life began to show cracks. As Imogen's modeling invitations decreased, her social circle also shrank accordingly. Previously, her social media account would receive countless likes and comments daily, but now the attention was much less than before. She began to frequently refresh her phone, following those colleagues who were still in the spotlight. "You've been staring at your phone lately?" Gareth asked with concern during a Friday date. Imogen put down her phone and forced a smile. "It's nothing, just seeing what old friends are up to. Larissa recently got a big endorsement deal. I'm quite envious." Gareth held her hand and said, "Your designs have a lot of potential, more long-term development than modeling work. Didn't we agree that you could take it slow? My income is enough for us to live very well." Imogen nodded, but in her heart arose a hint of discontent. She didn't want to be just Gareth's appendage. She wanted her own career and her own shine. More importantly, she began to miss that feeling of being under the spotlight, of being looked up to by everyone. Opportunities always appear when least expected. One day, Imogen received a call from Octavia, a model colleague she hadn't contacted in years, inviting her to a private party. There will be many industry bigwigs, Perhaps helpful for your design brand. Octavia said on the phone. Don't tell anyone. It's a rather private circle. The party was held at a private estate in Miami, much more luxurious than Imogen had imagined. By the pool were towers of champagne, constant food, and the attendees were all elites and tycoons from high society. Imogen soon discovered that this wasn't an ordinary social gathering, but a private club organized by wealthy individuals seeking various extraordinary forms of entertainment. It was at this party that Imogen met Declan. He was one of the central figures of the party. On the surface, he ran a high-end fitness club, but in reality, he was the organizer of underground fights. Declan was muscular, with an elegance mixed with a touch of danger, completely different from Gareth's steadiness. You must be Imogen. I've heard about you. Declan approached her with 2 glasses of champagne, handing her one. Why is a beauty like you standing here alone? Imogen took the champagne and took a small sip. I'm just observing. These people don't look like the type who could help my clothing business. Declan laughed. Because they don't come here to talk business. They have plenty of money. They come here looking for excitement. He leaned closer to her and lowered his voice. Just like you. These words touched Imogen. Indeed, she missed that feeling of adrenaline rushing, the excitement of being watched. Declan seemed to have seen through her thoughts and invited her to see his special project over the weekend. If you want excitement, I guarantee you'll like it. Declan's eyes sparkled with a dangerous gleam. Imogen should have refused. She knew she was married. But Declan's proposal was like a seed, taking root in her heart. After a few glasses of champagne, she accepted Declan's invitation, lying that she was going to a design exchange. Gareth was busy at that time planning security for an important client. Although he made sure to return home every night to accompany Imogen, daytime work indeed took up most of his energy. He didn't think much about it, wished her to have fun, and reminded her to be careful. Over the weekend, Imogen came to the location Declan specified, a mansion in the wealthy district. To her surprise, she discovered that an underground fight was being held there. The wealthy sat around a specially designed ring, betting on the fighters in the ring, with amounts easily reaching tens of thousands of dollars. What shocked Imogen more was that Declan was not only the organizer, but also one of the most popular fighters in the arena. When he entered the ring bare-chested, displaying perfect muscle lines, the entire place boiled over. Imogen had never felt such a primitive and strong attraction. Amidst the clamor of over 500 spectators, her eyes could not move away from Declan. The strength and danger emanating from him made her heart race. The fighting process was even more intense. Declan's opponent was a burly fighter, but Declan's techniques were clearly superior. Each of his punches precisely hit his opponent's weak points, his movements carrying an elegant yet deadly force. When he finally won the match, with blood dripping along his firm jaw, raising both arms to receive the cheers of the crowd, Imogen felt as if she had returned to her most glorious runway moments. That feeling of being surrounded by spotlights and everyone's gaze. That night, Declan defeated his opponent and won the applause of all. After the match, he invited Imogen to a private celebration. Amidst champagne and laughter, Imogen felt that long-forgotten sense of being valued. "This is my world," Declan said, looking into her eyes. "Dangerous, but exciting, just like your former modeling career." He gently wiped away champagne from the corner of her lips, his fingers lingering much longer than etiquette allowed. The tension between them almost made the air solidify. Imogen knew she should leave, but that feeling of being desired, of being worshipped, was so strong. For years, Gareth had given her safety and respect, but this primitive desire and excitement she hadn't experienced in a long time. That night, Imogen betrayed Gareth for the first time. She told herself it was just a momentary impulse, but a week later, she found excuses to go to Declan's party again. Soon, this became the norm. Imogen was not only addicted to her relationship with Declan, but also addicted to that underground world full of excitement and luxury. Declan also gave her more. He introduced her to top figures in the fashion world, helping her find tycoons interested in investing in her clothing brand. Imogen began to regain confidence and a sense of existence in this world driven by money and excitement. She told herself she was just using Declan to develop her own career, but deep in her heart, she knew she was already too deeply involved. Meanwhile, Gareth began to notice changes in Imogen. She returned home later and later, always absent-minded, with a new password set on her phone. What concerned Gareth most was that the sparkle in Imogen's eyes had returned, but this sparkle wasn't because of him. "You seem very happy lately," Gareth tentatively asked one night. Imogen vaguely replied, "Maybe it's new design inspiration." She turned and walked into the bathroom, avoiding Gareth's gaze. She didn't want to face her own lies, and even less, Gareth's trusting eyes. After each betrayal, she would feel a pang of guilt, but when Declan's text or call appeared again, this guilt would be replaced by anticipation. She didn't want to hurt Gareth, but she also couldn't give up this long-missed feeling of being desired. Gareth didn't press further, but his instinct told him things weren't so simple. As a former Special Forces member, his well-trained observation skills allowed him to notice many details. The scent of unfamiliar cologne on Imogen's clothes, her occasional smile when looking at her phone, and her perfunctory attitude toward Friday date nights. Years of military training and security work had taught Gareth that direct questioning often doesn't get the truth. He decided to collect evidence first. As the owner of a security company, Gareth had legal resources at his disposal. He hired Vaughn, the most trustworthy security expert in the company, asking him to keep an eye on Imogen's whereabouts within legal bounds. "Only in public places, don't invade privacy," Gareth seriously told Vaughn. "I just want to know if she's safe." Vaughn nodded. He understood his boss's situation. As a veteran of the company, he had witnessed the love between Gareth and Imogen and also didn't want to believe Imogen would betray Gareth. A week later, Vaughn brought the first-hand information. Imogen frequently visited a mansion in the wealthy district, staying for long periods each time. Through investigation via public channels, Vaughn confirmed that the mansion's owner was Declan, ostensibly the owner of a high-end fitness club. "There's more." Vaughn hesitated for a moment and handed Gareth a document. "This Declan has some background. He was once a professional boxer, banned for life for using prohibited substances. Afterward, he moved into the underground fighting circuit, becoming an organizer and participant." Gareth's eyes turned cold. He knew this type of person, had seen too many in the military and security work, glamorous on the surface, yet full of danger inside. What worried him more was that this type of person often had connections with prohibited substances and gambling. "What relationship do you think they have?" Gareth asked, his voice deeper than usual. Vaughn avoided Gareth's gaze. "Maybe just friends. But that mansion sometimes hosts high-profile private parties, with tycoons and celebrities. We also found some intimate photos." Vaughn opened the tablet and showed Gareth several photos. The photos were taken in public areas outside the mansion, showing Imogen and Declan leaving together, with intimate behavior, Declan's arm around her waist. One photo clearly captured the moment they were kissing. Gareth's expression didn't change, but his eyes grew colder. He turned off the tablet, was silent for a moment, then said, "Continue collecting information. I need to understand the whole situation." In the following days, Gareth maintained appearances, returning home on time, even proposing to take Imogen to her favorite restaurant and walk on the beach on weekends. Imogen sometimes accepted these invitations, sometimes declined with work as an excuse. Gareth didn't insist, only silently noted down each excuse in time. Meanwhile, Vaughn brought more information about Declan and that mansion. Based on surveillance in public places and legally collected information, Vaughn confirmed that underground fights were regularly held there, with top-tier wealthy individuals as participants and shocking bet amounts. "There's one strange thing," Vaughn added. "Declan seems to especially take care of Imogen. She has received quite a few design contracts and investment promises in that circle at an unusually fast pace." Gareth's eyes narrowed slightly. "Help me check the backgrounds of those investors." A week later, Vaughn brought more information. Most of the tycoons who promised to invest in Imogen's design brand were Declan's close friends. A few even had minor criminal records. "According to my investigation, these promises are very likely just bait, used to keep her involved in that circle," Vaughn said. "Not a single investment has actually materialized." Gareth began to investigate more of Declan's background. Through connections in the security circle, he discovered that Declan not only organized underground fights, but also had links to several gray industries. More coincidentally, 3 years ago, one of Gareth's clients had owed Declan a huge sum due to gambling, and Gareth had helped the client escape Declan's threats, which made Declan hold a grudge. "So this is revenge," Gareth muttered to himself. He approached Imogen to get back at me. But Gareth quickly dismissed this idea. From Vaughn's investigation, the meeting between Declan and Imogen seemed genuinely coincidental, not premeditated. This made things more complicated. Imogen's betrayal was entirely voluntary. One evening, Imogen told Gareth she was going to attend an important design exchange, possibly returning very late. Gareth nodded in agreement, showing no abnormality on his face. But after Imogen left, he contacted Vaughn. "Follow her. I need to know the exact location." A few hours later, Vaughn sent the address and detailed information. An unprecedented underground fight was about to be held at that mansion, with heavyweight tycoons coming from out of state specifically. And Declan would be one of the participants in the main fight. Gareth was silent for a long while, finally only saying, "Thank you, Vaughn." He hung up the phone, walked to the closet, and took out a locked metal box from the deepest part. Inside the box were items he rarely touched since his retirement: a set of specialized combat gear and several medals he'd received during his service. Gareth looked at himself in the mirror, a cold and dangerous gleam flashing in his eyes. He had once been an elite member of the Special Forces, far more skilled than he appeared on the surface. After retirement, he still maintained high-intensity training 3 times a week. His physical condition was not at all inferior to his prime. "The game needs to end," Gareth said to the mirror, with no anger in his voice, only resolution. The underground fighting arena inside the mansion was especially lively tonight. Around it sat elegantly dressed wealthy individuals, betting enormous sums on the fighters in the ring, either for excitement or to showcase their financial power. At the edge of the ring, several scantily clad women were responsible for serving drinks to VIP guests, while in that corner's main seats, several casino moguls and entrepreneurs were chatting animatedly with Declan. Imogen sat in the VIP area not far from the ring, wearing a red evening gown, with impeccable makeup. She had become a regular in this circle. Many wealthy individuals knew her, thinking she was just one of Declan's many female companions. But only Imogen herself knew that her relationship with Declan had long surpassed a casual affair. Declan had given her what she lost in the latter stages of her modeling career: excitement, attention, and a social circle. Over the past few months, Imogen had attended these gatherings almost weekly, immersing herself in luxury and excitement. She promised herself it was only temporary, that she just needed to find her former self, and then would return to a peaceful life. However, deep in her heart, Imogen knew she was deceiving herself. She enjoyed all of this, enjoyed the thrill of the affair, enjoyed the attention Declan gave her, enjoyed the feeling of returning to the spotlight. Each time she was with Gareth, she felt a touch of guilt, but it would quickly be replaced by the anticipation of the next date with Declan. She scanned the people around her, feeling a sense of superiority. These top-tier tycoons and celebrities were a circle ordinary people couldn't access. And she, Imogen, was not only among them, but also the woman of Declan, this circle's central figure. This feeling of being looked up to was exactly what she had as a model and lost after marriage. The main fight was about to begin. Declan headed to the changing room to prepare, passing by Imogen, lightly squeezing her shoulder. This small gesture was seen by quite a few people, eliciting several suggestive whistles. Imogen blushed, but a wave of satisfaction rose in her heart. "He really treats you specially," a regular whispered in her ear. "Declan never shows intimacy in front of so many people." Imogen smiled without speaking, but secretly felt proud. She had heard many such comments, each time confirming that she was special to Declan, different from those women he just played with. This feeling of being treated specially was something she couldn't get in her mundane marriage with Gareth. Half an hour later, with music blaring, Declan entered the ring, and the whole place erupted in cheers. His opponent was a fighter from Chicago, burly, reportedly known as Iron Fist in the underground fighting world. Bets quickly soared, the scene exceptionally heated. After the fight began, Declan took the upper hand with his agile movements and precise strikes. Each of his attacks drew cheers from the audience, especially those wealthy individuals who had bet on him. Imogen also cheered with the crowd, excitement gleaming in her eyes. In the third round, Declan knocked down his opponent with a beautiful uppercut, winning the match. The entire place boiled over, champagne spraying, cheers thundering. Imogen stood up, ready to congratulate Declan, just like countless times before. At that moment, the music suddenly stopped, and the lights abruptly turned toward the ring entrance. A figure walked slowly, attracting all eyes. Imogen's smile froze on her face. She recognized that figure. It was Gareth. Gareth walked calmly onto the ring, picking up the microphone. His voice calm and clear, especially prominent in the now silent arena. "Excellent fight, Declan. Just as excellent as sharing my wife. However, that gambling debt you owe me, tonight will be repaid in another way." The entire place burst into murmurs. Declan frowned, obviously recognizing Gareth. That debt conflict 3 years ago had caused him quite a loss, and the security expert who had helped the debtor was now standing in front of him. But Declan quickly regained his composure, with a contemptuous smile on his lips. "Gareth, didn't expect to see you here," Declan said with feigned ease. "But I don't recall owing you any gambling debt." Gareth's gaze swept across the venue, finally resting on Imogen. Imogen felt a bout of dizziness, almost fainting. She had never thought Gareth would appear here, much less reveal her secret in this way. Her first reaction was fear and shame, followed by an inexplicable anger. How dare Gareth barge into her world? He must have had someone follow her. Such behavior was almost an invasion of her privacy. "Perhaps I should reintroduce myself," Gareth said, his voice still calm. "I'm Gareth, her husband." He pointed to Imogen. "It seems we were both kept in the dark, Declan. You thought she was single, and I thought she was a loyal wife." Declan's expression changed. He looked at Imogen, a flash of confusion in his eyes. But it lasted only a moment, followed by an almost challenging smile. "Oh, really? Then you should thank me for giving your wife back the confidence and happiness you clearly couldn't provide." Imogen wanted to explain, but her throat seemed blocked, unable to utter a word. Her emotions oscillated between fear, shame, and anger, not knowing how to handle this situation. Below the ring, the wealthy began to whisper among themselves, some recognizing Gareth as the boss of a well-known security company, but more people were excited about this unexpected drama. To them, this was more thrilling than any fight. Let's put personal grudges aside. Gareth took off his jacket, revealing well-trained muscles. "What you owe me isn't money, but a fair match." Declan burst into laughter. "Are you serious? I'm a professional boxer," Gareth calmly said, "and I'm former Special Forces. The bet remains the usual rule. Winner takes all." A wave of cheers erupted from the crowd, some already starting to place bets. Declan looked at the excited spectators around him, then at Gareth's determined gaze, and grinned. "As you wish." He turned to the crowd, stretching out his arms. "Looks like we have an extra surprise tonight. A bonus match. This gentleman wants to prove he deserves his wife more than I do." The wealthy laughed, more bets quickly increasing. Imogen finally found her voice, rushing toward the ring. "Gareth, don't do this. It's too dangerous." But her voice was drowned out in the clamor of the crowd. Gareth didn't even look at her. "Your opinion isn't needed here, Imogen. You've already made your choice." These words stabbed like a knife into Imogen's heart. She realized that Gareth had already known everything, and tonight wasn't a coincidence, but a carefully planned revenge. The fight quickly began. Declan, full of confidence, believed he would have no problem facing a security company boss. He launched the first attack, a series of punches toward Gareth. To everyone's surprise, Gareth not only dodged them all, but his counterattacks were so fast they were difficult to follow with the eye. His fighting style was completely different from traditional boxing, a fusion of various military combat techniques, each strike precisely hitting Declan's vital points. At the end of the first round, Declan was already bleeding from the nose, while Gareth hadn't even broken a sweat. The wealthy were in a frenzy, bets quickly shifting toward Gareth. "You thought I was just someone who sits in an office?" Gareth sneered. "Special Forces training isn't meant to be used in an office." Declan's expression changed. For the first time, he realized he might have underestimated his opponent. He looked toward the ringside where Imogen stood, hoping to get some support from her. But Imogen was watching everything in horror, as if she didn't recognize the two men in the ring. In the second round, Declan became more cautious, but he was still no match for Gareth. Each of Gareth's strikes was incredibly precise, as if he could predict every move Declan made. Declan's breathing became increasingly rapid, his movements more chaotic. "He's doing it on purpose," A wealthy person knowledgeable about fighting murmured to someone beside him. He's dragging out the time, making everyone see clearly. In the third round, Gareth suddenly accelerated, a series of strikes falling like a storm on Declan. The final hit, a precise knee strike, heavily impacted Declan's right knee joint. With a clear sound of breaking, Declan fell to the ground, howling in pain. The entire place fell into absolute silence. Gareth stood beside Declan, looking down at him. Anterior cruciate ligament torn, boxing career ends here. This is the debt you owed me. Declan painfully looked up at Gareth, his eyes full of hatred. But even in this situation, he still tried to maintain dignity. You won the fight, but you won't win her back. She came to me because you couldn't give her what she wanted. Gareth coldly said, I never keep someone who doesn't want to stay. She is free. You are also free, free to face your new life. Imogen watched all this, pale-faced. She didn't recognize the Gareth in the ring. That cold, precise, and dangerous man was completely different from the gentle husband she remembered. But at the same time, she couldn't take her eyes off him. In that moment, she felt a complex emotion, fear, awe, and even a touch of attraction that she quickly suppressed. Gareth turned and walked down from the ring, heading straight toward Imogen. People around automatically made way. Imogen stood where she was, at a loss. She wanted to explain, wanted to justify, wanted to say that Declan was just a momentary infatuation, but faced with Gareth's cold gaze, she found herself unable to speak. You followed me. These were the only words she could utter, her voice full of accusation, as if she were the victim. Gareth's gaze turned even colder. Is that what you want to say? After being discovered in your betrayal, what you care about is how I found out. Imogen felt a wave of shame, but pride prevented her from apologizing. She straightened her back. What about you? Lurking in the darkness and then jumping out unexpectedly? Is this how you handle problems? Gareth calmly said, Pack your things, leave my house. Lawyers will contact you. These words were like cold water poured over Imogen. She suddenly realized that Gareth was serious. He really was going to end this marriage. Gareth, can we talk first? At least give me a chance to explain. You had countless nights to explain. You chose to lie. Now there's nothing to talk about. Gareth's voice was emotionless, as if discussing the weather. With that, he turned and left, leaving Imogen standing there, surrounded by wealthy onlookers with either sympathetic or mocking gazes. A once radiant model, now a laughingstock for betraying her husband. The next day, Gareth went to work as usual, as if everything last night had never happened. But the atmosphere in the company was obviously different. News traveled fast, especially in the wealthy and security circles. The skills Gareth displayed and how he handled the problem made many potential clients look at him with new eyes. 3 new high-end clients have contacted us, Vaughn reported to Gareth. All were present last night. One of them is that Chicago real estate tycoon. He says after seeing your skills, he believes no one is more suitable than you to handle his security. Gareth nodded, showing no joy. Arrange the meetings. Vaughn hesitated for a moment, then asked, Are you feeling all right? Gareth gave him a look. I don't know what you're talking about. Vaughn sighed. We all care about you, Gareth. Gareth's expression softened a little. I know, but I'm fine. Work is the best form of healing. Meanwhile, Imogen returned home to pack her things. Gareth had already left, but had left a letter and a divorce agreement. The letter was simple and direct. He wouldn't discuss her betrayal in public. Property division would follow the prenuptial agreement, but he would never forgive her. Imogen finished reading the letter, her heart filled with mixed emotions. She hadn't expected things to go this far. In her imagination, if Gareth discovered her affair with Declan, he would be angry, they would argue, but ultimately he would understand her, even forgive her. But Gareth's calmness and determination frightened her more than any anger. She tried calling Gareth's phone, but all calls went to voicemail. After the 10th unsuccessful attempt, she received a text message from Gareth. Stop calling. Everything will be handled by lawyers. Imogen sat in the empty bedroom, suddenly realizing she had truly lost Gareth. Only then did she understand that she had always assumed that no matter what she did, Gareth would be there waiting, forgiving her. But reality gave her a heavy blow. Some lines, once crossed, can never be uncrossed. After leaving Gareth's home, Imogen tried to contact Declan, but the phone was never answered. A few days later, She learned from a friend that Declan had to withdraw from the boxing circle due to his severe knee injury, and because of the scandal of using prohibited substances in underground fights being exposed, his fitness club was also under investigation. Imogen decided to find Declan personally. When she came to Declan's mansion, she found the gates locked, the windows dark. A security guard told her that Declan had moved away, leaving no new contact information. Just as she was about to leave, one of Declan's former assistants recognized her. "You're still looking for him?" Imogen nodded. The assistant sneered. "He's already left Miami. And if I were you, I wouldn't look for him anymore." "Why?" Imogen asked. "Because he knew you were married all along," the assistant said. "He approached you to get information about your husband. 3 years ago, in that debt dispute, your husband made him lose face completely. He always wanted revenge." Imogen looked at him shocked. "That's impossible. He said he loved me." The assistant shook his head. "Declan only loves himself. You were just part of his plan. Too bad the plan failed. Now he's injured too badly. His career is finished, and his partners took the opportunity to seize his business." Only then did Imogen understand that Declan's approach wasn't just because of attraction, but to obtain information about Gareth. But ironically, Declan underestimated Gareth's capabilities, and in the end, his plan backfired. For Imogen, the nightmare was just beginning. The video of the underground fight somehow spread, though there was no direct evidence of her infidelity. The images of her intimate interaction with Declan were enough to spark speculation. Soon, friends from the design world and modeling circle began to distance themselves from her. No one wanted to work with a betrayer, and no brand wanted to be associated with scandal. Her design studio received no inquiries, and all modeling invitations were canceled. Most ironic was that those wealthy individuals who had once shown interest in her at the underground fights now avoided her like the plague. In their eyes, a woman who betrays her husband would betray anyone. 3 months later, Imogen had to move out of her luxury apartment into a small house in an ordinary neighborhood. According to the prenuptial agreement, she received a portion of the assets, but far from enough to maintain her accustomed lifestyle. Imogen began to reflect on her choices. She realized that the excitement and attention she pursued were ultimately just an illusory dream. She lost someone who truly loved her, in exchange for momentary pleasure and lasting pain. But her pride still prevented her from directly apologizing to Gareth. In her mind, Gareth's approach was too extreme. He could have given her a chance to explain, rather than cutting off all contact. Meanwhile, Gareth's security company business was booming. That night's incident gave him a reputation in specific circles. Many top-tier wealthy individuals specifically requested that he personally handle their security. The company doubled in size, but Gareth himself became more aloof and closed off. Gareth poured all his energy into work. He expanded the company, brought in more former military personnel and professional security staff, developed new security systems and services. He worked almost 16 hours a day. Seemingly only thus could he temporarily forget the pain in his heart. "You need rest," Gareth Vaughn advised. "The company is already on track. You should give yourself some time." Gareth just shook his head. Work is the best rest. But in the lonely hours of the night, Gareth would still recall his past with Imogen. Those beautiful memories were now all covered with a layer of shadow. He didn't understand why Imogen had betrayed him, nor did he believe he could forgive such betrayal. In his values, loyalty was the most basic bottom line. Once broken, it could not be repaired. A year later, the divorce proceedings were completely finalized. Gareth never mentioned Imogen in public and refused to respond to any questions about that night. His friends all knew this topic was off limits. At the lowest point of her career, Imogen received a call from Octavia, that friend who had once brought her into the underground fighting circle. "I have a job opportunity for you," Octavia said. "A new model training institution needs teachers." Imogen almost cried with joy. "Thank you, Octavia. I really need this opportunity." There was silence on the other end of the phone. Then Octavia said, "But there's a condition. The investor wants you to share your experience as cautionary material." Imogen's heart sank. "You mean to talk about me and Gareth?" "To be precise, about you, Gareth, and Declan." Octavia's voice turned cold. "You know, that video is very popular in certain circles. The investor thinks your story would have educational value for young models." Only then did Imogen understand that they weren't helping her, but making her into others' laughingstock and lesson. She hung up the phone, finally understanding that she had lost everything: love, career, friends, and dignity. However, Imogen didn't completely give up. She began working in an ordinary clothing store, using her spare time to continue her designs. Although no big brands were willing to work with her, she started taking on projects from smaller independent designers. She no longer pursued spotlights and fame, but rather rediscovered her pure love for design. Declan's fate was worse. The knee injury forever prevented him from returning to the ring. The fitness club collapsed due to scandal. Former partners took most of the assets, leaving him only with debts and enemies. Worse still, the after-effects of his early use of prohibited substances began to manifest, his health rapidly deteriorating. 2 years later, on a rainy night, Imogen was walking alone on the street when she suddenly saw a familiar figure. It was Declan, but almost unrecognizable. His once muscular body had thinned considerably, his walk limping. The weathering on his face made him look 10 years older. Their eyes met, Declan's showing a flash of complex emotion, quickly replaced by hatred. "Satisfied?" he said coldly. "Seeing what I've become?" Imogen shook her head. "I never wanted you to end up like this, Declan." Declan sneered. "Whether you wanted it or not, this is the fact. Your husband destroyed everything of mine." "No," Imogen calmly said. "It was our own choices that destroyed us." Declan stared at her for a while, then turned and left, leaving a trail of limping footprints disappearing into the rainy night. In that moment, Imogen finally completely understood how fatal her mistakes were and how heavy the price. 5 years later, Garrett's security company had become one of America's top high-end security service providers, with clients including political officials and business moguls. He occasionally appeared in business magazines, but always kept his private life low-key. In an interview for a business magazine, the reporter asked what his secret to success was. Gareth pondered for a moment and replied, "Understanding your boundaries, knowing what lines cannot be crossed. In life it's thus, in security work even more so. Some say you show no mercy to betrayers." The reporter continued, "Is this also part of your business philosophy?" Gareth's gaze turned sharp. "My private life is not for discussion. But yes, whether business partners or clients, once trust is betrayed, there won't be a second chance." That evening, at a charity gala, Gareth met many well-known figures from the business and political worlds. An uninformed lady introduced him to the new design consultant, Imogen. After 5 years without seeing each other, Imogen was still beautiful, but the sharpness in her eyes had been softened by the years. Seeing Gareth, she was obviously startled, but quickly recovered her professional smile, extending her hand. "Long time no see, Gareth." Gareth briefly shook her hand, his voice calm. "Long time no see." People around sensed the change in atmosphere and tactfully walked away, giving them a moment alone. "You look well," Imogen hesitantly said. "I've heard the company is doing very well." Gareth nodded. "And your designs?" "I have my own brand, though not big, but enough for me to be proud of," Imogen said softly. "I'm very sorry about everything. I thought you should know." Gareth looked into her eyes, with no anger, no warmth, only calmness. "Thank you for your apology. I hope you're doing well." "Is that all?" Imogen tentatively asked. "After so many years, we can't even be friends?" Gareth shook his head. "Some things are already in the past, Imogen. I don't hate you, but we also can't go back to the way things were. You chose your path. I chose mine." Imogen's eyes flashed with a hint of disappointment, but she understood. She nodded. "I understand. Good luck, Gareth." After the gala, Gareth drove home alone. Passing a familiar street, he recalled the days when he used to walk there with Imogen. Those memories no longer caused him pain, just like flipping through an old photo album, with a touch of nostalgia, but no longer stirring emotions. Through that painful experience, Gareth learned an important lesson. No matter how strong one appears on the outside, inner scars need time to heal. He no longer hated Imogen, but would also never forget the pain of that betrayal. Some mistakes cannot be undone. Some roads once chosen cannot be returned from. Gareth drove toward his new home. There were no shared memories with Imogen there, only the new life he had created for himself. He had let go of the past, But this didn't mean forgiveness or reconciliation. Some traces of betrayal will forever remain in the deepest part of the heart, reminding people of the preciousness and fragility of trust. As for Imogen, although she had rebuilt her life and career, whenever she saw happy couples, she would think of the love she once had and destroyed with her own hands. She understood that some choices have a price that requires a lifetime to repay. This wasn't redemption, but accepting the cost of reality. If this story resonated with you, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more exciting content. We look forward to seeing you in our next story.